You hear so many chefs these days, and they have recipes of their own. They don't have their own repertoire, and they just talk all the time. Google. I had quite recently, somebody, I was watching something that he was doing, and I said, that's not right to me. You know what you're doing? He said, oh no, it's right. He said, I've Googled it. Unfortunately, the name Escoffier now, it's I talk to not only young chefs, but even some of more experienced chefs who haven't had the classical training, should I say. You mentioned the name Escoffier, and I was like, well, who's that? You mentioned, I don't know, like Gordon Ramsay. Get the grounding, get those basics, because they'll always be there and you'll always need them. How many times would you go into a restaurant and you'd hear a customer ask for, well, can I have a little bit more foam, please? Never. But they might ask, or could I have another little drop of that beautiful, reduction
jus,
of jus,
What's the secret, Gary? What kept you so long in this industry, Gary Benton, welcome to Hospitality Insights. Thank you for
being
inviting
me, Radu. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure having you. So in today's podcast, I want to talk about, you being part of the Auguste Escoffier disciples, which is something very interesting because this guy was really, and it's still to today, it's something that what he put in place for hospitality is something that we're still following, which is amazing. That happened in 17th, 18th century or something?
Late 18th century.
Late
really,
18th century. Yeah. So that's part that we want to cover today. And you are, I think, if I'm not wrong, you are the only disciples in the Channel Islands, which is amazing. Yeah. Being recently knighted in this organization. So that's impressive. With 46 years probably altogether of experience.
Including my college time, in 1977, when I started college. We're talking 47 years.
Wow.
Prior to that, I had passion already in the kitchen. You could say, that was, I left school at 16 like everybody else and went straight into college. But, about the age of 13, I would say, was when I was actually inside a commercial kitchen,
That's very impressive.
I had relatives, couple of uncles. One uncle was a baker, had a bakery, so I was very interested, and I'd always go down and help. Probably got in the way often, but
but that's how you start, right?
Yeah, and his brother, these were both my father's brothers, and the other brother had an ice cream factory.
Wow, what a combination!
So not quite, But
where was this in the UK?
As in Hastings, Well, the bakery actually was just outside of Hastings in a small little village going further towards Kent, Tunbridge Wells, but Lamberhurst actually. But so my father would drive me there. Maybe 40, 50-minute drive, drop me off. I'd spend the day in the bakery, getting my uncle's way, but absolutely loved it, But also then I managed, probably at around about the age of 15, I suppose, I managed to go and get some experience in the local hospital kitchen. It wouldn't heard of these days with the health and safety and, at that age to be in a commercial kitchen.
But that must have helped quite a lot from that point of view, because the health and safety in these kitchens it's really a high standard.
Exactly. Well, and also, going back to Escoffier, this is all, all part of what he created. We talk about health and safety these days, and sometimes it's we all say health and safety. It's a nuisance. It's stops us, prevents us from doing certain things that we used to do, without a problem. But actually, without realising, Escoffier, he was the first one to, he was way ahead of his time, really, back then. It wasn't called health and safety. They didn't. It didn't have that title, but he created this whole,
like the guidelines almost.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So unfortunately, the name Escoffier now, it's I talk to not only young chefs, but even some of more experienced chefs who haven't had the classical training, should I say. You mentioned the name Escoffier, and it was like, well, who's that? You mentioned, I don't know, like Gordon Ramsay, and straight away,
But it's crazy how many dishes as well. It's not just about obviously the framework. Yeah. It's also the dishes that he created that we use to this day.
Yeah. So anyway, a little bit about Escoffier, if you
No, absolutely, because we need to get into it because it's important.
It absolutely.
So people know what we are talking about.
When I went to college, and I mentioned it was 1977. when I started college, and within the first few weeks, I seem to remember that we had lessons on gastronomy, and Escoffier was the name that we, was drummed into us. This came from Escoffier this, Escoffier that. So it's I've kind of like gone through my career knowing who this person is, and what he was about, and what and why we do what we do now. And that's where it all came from. Now, Escoffier was a chef, a French chef, as I say, and he started his career similar, actually, about the age of 13. He was the son of a blacksmith, but I think his father realised that he was only not a large man, so
he wasn't made for that kind of job.
His father, I think his father thought, well, he's not blacksmith material, and sent him to his uncle's restaurant in France to work at the age of 13. And so the name of the restaurant it's gone from my mind at the moment. But anyway, that's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And then, as you could imagine, and I think it's really great for, and especially young chefs these days, to have a little look. It's easy to find it. Google Escoffier, and there will be so many.
Yeah.
So much information about the guy, and just to watch a little bit of a little video, YouTube video, something about the guy, and you learn so much that, the way the kitchens used to be back then, coal-fired ovens, no ventilation. The drinking culture, of course, was only really because of the heat, so that started this big problem of drinking in the kitchen. Now, as he progressed, as he got older, and he had gone through war, and he'd been sent off to war himself, as a young soldier, actually as a chef. So he got into the catering section. So he continued then, and he was actually recognised as being actually quite a good chef then. So the officers took him in this case. So he's now the officer's chef. And anyway, so but then after the war, this was France and Russia, actually. Anyway, so he then was back into the industry in France, where the industry in France, the hospitality and all the restaurant, hotel industry was very active. Society there, they were out, enjoying that lifestyle, but it was nothing in this country. There was nothing in the UK at all. It wasn't, So anyway, he, after working in many different hotels and restaurants, he eventually kind of partnered up with a guy by the name of Cesar Ritz, and we've all heard of Ritz,
Yes.
So anyway, he partnered up with Cesar Ritz, and they were invited over to London by, what's his name, D'Oyly Carte. Richard D'Oyly Carte was the owner of the new Savoy Hotel. And so he was opening this hotel. He wasn't a hotelier himself. All he knew about hotels was from his travels and hotels that he'd stayed in. That was his own experience. But he was, he was in the theatre, actually, So anyway, which was all quite relevant, really, because the theatrical side of, of the hotel was, this is how this all evolved, really. So anyway, so he offered this position to Cesar Ritz and Georges Auguste Escoffier, and so they decided that they would give it a 6-month trial. They would come to the UK because Escoffier was a bit sceptical about this. The UK, there's the culture, there's a
lot of things that could go wrong.
No, yes, I mean, what is there for me, basically, So, but anyway, so he, they said, okay, well, we'll come for 6 months, and they did. And they opened up the Savoy Hotel, and himself and Cesar Ritz, they developed this whole new eating culture in London, in the city, and from then on, that was really where, Escoffier really, he turned, eating into dining. That's what we say. That's how it was, because people didn't dine out at all, and so then society started looking at
Open up.
what was going on, what's going on here at the Savoy, and then of course it grew, and then actually it was then even the royal family got involved. This is the Grand Hotel in London, big, the Savoy, and anyway, so that continued as it was, and they built this up there, and anyway, so a period of time later, I can't remember how long that was, but him and so this is Escoffier and Ritz, they were summoned to the office and questioned over some fraudulent activities that had been going on, and it came to light, although so it came to light within the hotel, within the management, that they had been actually had this little bit of commission, should I say, from their suppliers, so they were anyway they were making around about 5%. 5% of all expenditure was going their way, so anyway, they were asked to leave immediately, leave the hotel. Let's say they were sacked. This actually only actually came public. This was kept secret for 100 years. Wow. This was in somewhere around in the 1980s when this actually came public. Wow. So this was completely swept under the carpet. It was all to do with the fact that the royal family were involved with the hotel.
It was a dark part of his life.
Absolutely, I guess. yeah. But you can't take away from him the fact that what he's done. So anyway, what he actually did. So the things without, there's lists and lists of things that I could tell you about. Things that Escoffier actually did for us as chefs. He is known as the king of chefs and the chef of kings, and it's absolutely what he is. He, for example, the brigade system that we know, the kitchen brigade as we know it in the industry, was developed by Escoffier.
All the titles the chefs have.
Yeah, there was nothing. There was nothing at all. When there was chaos, the chefs would turn up for work. There was no menu. Menus didn't exist. Food was produced in the kitchen in chaos. Quite often, 3 or 4 chefs would be cooking the same thing, not knowing who's doing what. Yeah. And so obviously he'd spent his time in the army because he was called for duty. So he brought that military approach into the kitchen. So he developed this system, which we now know as the kitchen brigade, to organise this, and then with that in place, he was able then to transform how people were used to. They would go to even at the Savoy, you would go to the restaurant and this is the food we're serving you. There was no menu. Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, this is what we've got.
And it all came together. Yeah. And it had to be like that, because as I say, there was no system in place. Anyway, so with the system, we're now able to have a menu. We're able to sit down and choose when we want what we want when we want it. So we have a starter, we have maybe a soup course, a fish course, a main course.
Have an order to it.
And that's it. There's order because that's how it comes. But without that, it couldn't happen. Anyway, so yeah, that's just one of the things that that he introduced. The chef's hat, the necktie, the uniform, all the discipline in the kitchen. But he also was very charitable. During the war, during the First World War, where he actually wasn't called then, to war. Yeah. He guaranteed all of his workers, all of his chefs were sent off to serve their country. He guaranteed everyone a job. Everyone that came back, he would guarantee them a job. While they were away, and there was he wasn't able to operate as a hotel. He was feeding the families of these people, and anybody in need, really. He just was doing what he could for the war effort, and anyway, so he he did all these things. Now, one of the things which is really important to know, which is for chefs, and sadly, even some chefs now don't even know this basic term of the 5 mother sauces, which we, from with classical cooking, and many chefs, watching this and, would know what I'm talking about. There are, unfortunately, now there are some younger chefs that, they don't even know what that, I know this because of my experience. I speak to them and and I do question some of the younger chefs, because I'm interested to find out what they do, what they're being taught these days, we're talking about bechamel, hollandaise, espagnole, velouté, tomato sauce. That's the 5. Now, he created that, and without that, you've got to know these fundamental basics, and
you can go in so many directions from there. It's crazy,
right. And that's great too, and he, that's what he wanted. He doesn't want everything to stay in the past.
But what I'm saying, you need to know the basics to go in all sorts of directions. Yeah.
Any chef, worth his salt should know these basic, fundamentals of cookery. So I through my career, and it's been based, in hotels, cruise ships, but also spent the time myself as a college lecturer in the UK, in Hastings, in fact, actually, at the college that I attended, as a student, although a different building, because the old college had been demolished and they'd moved and built this beautiful new college, and it's absolutely fantastic. The facility is great, and I spent some time there. Actually, I started as a part-time lecturer, and then built that up, and I spent about 6 years in lecturing. It was very interesting, actually. Quite demanding. Yeah, it's very, very different. And Did
you expect it to be easier, probably?
I expected. I think the thing is, I was expecting it to be the same as when I was at college.
And things
had changed so much. Yeah, the content, and now this is.
What changing good, what changing bad, in your opinion?
Well, the thing is, this isn't the fault of the college staff. The lecturers are still, they're still committed. There's some great chefs in these colleges. I don't actually really have any contact here with Highlands College, and I would love to sometime, go and meet them, and perhaps that's something that I can do now, and with this. Let's not call it a title, Disciple of Escoffier.
No, but absolutely. I mean, you almost feel like is your, and I'm sure that's what it is. You feel like it's your duty now to make sure that these people understand, like the new generation understands what that guy was about, what is important, the basics and all that.
Yeah.
I think that's actually something that you probably will have to do, as part of your role now.
That is part of, that is really the main point of becoming a disciple of Escoffier. It is to to continue this the work that he did, and now also to educate and to support those coming into the industry, and also to try to get more people interested in the industry, because that's not so easy either, because it's it's
what
a tough
are the
one.
main conversations? Like, I'm always wondering, when you guys meet, because it's all. Some of the brightest minds probably of the industry are there. What are the main concerns? What are the topics that you talk about? I was like, what is the main subject of discussion, apart from, obviously, we need to keep the memory of the Escoffier alive, because that's something that's not question about it. But I'm sure there are things, that change from a year to another, or maybe, you deal with different kind of issues. What are the main subjects that you guys talk about that you should deal with, or that you are concerned about?
Well, of course, some of the actual curriculum itself, I mean, is that's out of our hands. That's we can't influence that at all. Unfortunately. So I think from my perspective, the the main topic really is now, how to get these students, not say to, not to stop college training, not to stop it, of course, but there was one thing that I often used to say, talk to colleagues or younger chefs about my experience of college. Now, when I attended college, I went on a full time course. So there were the options, and I believe there still are actually the options to attend full time as a full time catering student, which would be initially 2 years, and then you could extend to do an advanced, third year or even a fourth year now. And now, of course, it's the awarding bodies, or would be MVQ or VRQ or BTEC. Back then, of course, that still comes under City and Guilds. But when I took mine, that was say 77 to 79 was my first 2 years, and then I worked, and I then went for a little while, went to London, and then I continued with my my third year. Anyway, so 706-1 and 706-2. And that was a full-time course, and full-time then was full-time. It was like, it was like, the same hours that if you were going to work. Yeah. Albeit it was 9 to 5 and not, until 11, 12 o'clock at night, So there wasn't quite that, reality involved for the chef's training. They didn't get to do the late nights, of course, maybe one night a week, when the restaurant was open, because we had a public restaurant. Like most colleges, I think, have their own restaurant, which is open to the public, and they'll open for a dinner service, just for the students to get that, that night, that evening service experience, really. But anyway, so that was full time. And then while we were there, we had some of these called then day release students. So part-time students would come in, and we used to look at them and think, well, actually, we shouldn't say it, but we used to say, oh, the cowboys are in, because they actually just looked unprofessional, and then there's now, probably wrong. I shouldn't have been saying that, but they'd come from, from hotels or from guest houses, pubs, hospital, care homes, all aspects of the industry, but they just didn't look at all professional. And there was us with our starched hats and our neckties and, our long white aprons and the traditional uniform as it was. And then they would turn up with
I'm sure they were laughing about you on the other side.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. And anyway, so not only that, I mean, but that's important, look professional as well as, as well as behaving professional. And again, this is Escoffier. He created that uniform. He expected his team, his staff, to dress, immaculately, not only in work. Actually, he also had this, this ruling with his staff that they're smart in work, but they also need to be smart when they arrive to work. So outside of work, coming to work and leaving work, he wanted them to be, part of the society of the people that they were serving. He wanted them to look, immaculate at all times, even to the point that if they couldn't afford decent clothes to go home, he would buy them for them. That's the type of person he was. Yeah. Anyway, so we used to have pride in the uniform, and even now, I mean, I do now. I won't wear an unironed jacket or an unpressed jacket, and it's always got to be immaculate, and I think there's standards, isn't it? If you've got standards in yourself, your own presentation, then that follows through with everything that you do, in my opinion. Anyway, so not only about the uniform, but I say it started there, but then of course, they didn't seem to have the same dedication or attitude. I think it was, for them, it was almost like it was a day out for them every week. one day a week they would be working wherever they're working, and then they'd come to college one day and they would just treat it a little bit lightly, and they were only there at the end of the day to get a certificate, Now, so back then, my thought was, right, I'm doing the right thing. This is the right way to do it. We're doing around about 40-hour week, full-time course, and that to me was the only or the best way. to learn the trade, to get, the first step on the ladder, really, to start to, to really learn the basics properly. And we got great ingredients, and we really covered everything. We did French, we did the larder work, proper pastry, bakery work, and it was structured in such a way that you would really get a great in-depth, of knowledge in those first 2 years, if you wanted it, of course.
But then from there,
that's the other thing, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. I mean, I doubt that. Well, many schools now do that. I mean, I've done here in Highlands. You are as presentable as you could be, but not even close to what you're talking about them. Now, parts of what you were saying, doing service, because they have a restaurant here, that happens. There are quite a few similarities. I don't think, children as are passionate probably as they used to be. It's hard. It changes obviously from generation to generation. Yeah. And I was part of the guys that done it part-time here.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's kind of true, because when you do, let's say I was working at Ormer at the time, which was a Michelin star place.
Yeah.
For me, it was hard to justify, coming to school and learn some very basics that I was taught like years back.
Yeah.
But as you said, it was a bit for the diploma, and it was a bit of probably having fun as well. I don't know. I didn't really take it too serious. That's true.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And there was always a difference between us and the guys that were doing it from day to day. Although probably the skills were better on our side, because obviously you work in the kitchens already, you kind of know how to deal with service.
Yeah,
there's no question about it. I think from that point of view, we were a bit on the higher side from that perspective.
Yeah.
But what do you think changed from then, from when you were doing the school, when you were in school, from when you got to be a teacher, which was how many years later? Because then you get, you must have get a good sense of well, this is probably not exactly how I thought it will be.
No, and this in fact is what. Well, let's work out those years now. We're talking. So 79, and I left college.
Yeah.
And so I went back to teach. I was teaching, I think, by about 97, 98, I believe. Yeah, so around about that. So 20 years.
Yeah. Did you see like a big difference when you walked
huge,
in?
Yeah. So this now, as I say, that was my thought back then when I was a student, that was the way I did the right thing.
Yeah.
I completely changed that now. I can't say that college training isn't good. Of course it's good, but I don't think the quality and the quantity is there. And this is, as I say, it's unfortunate, and this is not the fault of the lecturing staff. This is just it's all about funding, and that's unfortunately that's what it's about. So now, and the way that you did it, as that was more recent, I believe is now the better way. Apprenticeships also, it's great. Apprenticeship schemes now
are they
available.
Still a thing? But
they're more so now, actually. Yeah, apprenticeships schemes have come back. Yeah,
but then probably not in Jersey.
I don't think there are. No, I don't think there are. But I know, towards the end of my time in college as a lecturer, we were looking more and more into apprenticeships.
Go and learn on the job.
On the job, yeah, absolutely. And then we were going out assessing students, on site,
Oh, nice.
And then, you could really see, okay, so, the student needs to be placed in a good establishment, it's, and working with a good team. So we need to be on site, and we need to be seeing the type of work that they're given and the team that they're working with. Also, we're not there to inspect the team, but of course we are looking,
I think it still happens probably for the full-time students here. I don't want to say no, because I know a few places that used to do it in the past. I don't know how was the situation now. I mean, when I've done mine was 10 years ago here in Jersey. So it's already been quite a bit of time, but I don't know what's the situation now and how it works. But then would you say that college is still important? Or if, let's say, someone approaches you, it'd be like, I want to get into hospitality, which unfortunately these days, there are less and less people. But if, let's say, someone comes to you, you have years and years of experience, surely, you would know by now, like what was best. Would you say go to the college? Would you say start in the kitchen? What would be your advice for someone starting or thinking about going into it?
I think, you need to research it all. You need to go and have a good look at the college, the local college. We're talking now in Jersey, aren't we? Of course, we're in the Channel Islands. But to any other areas, in the UK, then certainly I would say, go to not everybody has a local college.
True.
By the way, and you're in the UK, I was very lucky. It was on my doorstep. I lived in Hastings, born and brought up in Hastings, and that's where the college was. Some of the students had to travel, an hour and a half, 2 hours every day to get there, and then away again, in the evening. I was fortunate, as are students here in Jersey. Nothing's far here, is it? But of course, the college is on your doorstep. But wherever you are, I think you need to do that. You need to investigate all your opportunities, really. But don't expect everything to be handed to you on a plate. You just don't think, okay, well, now I can just go to college and I can just do that, and spend my year or 2 years there at college and do nothing else. Like
the extra mile you do, probably you do 9 to 5, but what you do after that is important.
Exactly, of course, absolutely. You still got to do your own private study. We had textbooks. Somebody, the chefs that see, or listen to this, that did that classical training will remember the practical cookery, which was called, which was our recipe book, basically, really. And then we had another book which was similar, called The Theory of Catering, and that showed all your butchery cuts, all your larder preparations, and had more sort of technical information. It wasn't recipes, it was more of a reference book, and then of course, outside of that, you've got, of course, those days you didn't have. You didn't have Google.
Everything was in books.
Everything was in books, and I read all of them. I read them from cover to cover, probably at least 2 times. Not so much going through the recipes, but of course all the reference books. Those that would give me information. I can always still remember that it's, I don't know, take something like cream, for example. I can always remember that single cream is 18%. Whipping cream is 35%, and double cream is 48% butterfat content. All those things is only, that's sort of like, laughable, really. But why would you remember that? But that's,
Then why things happen, right?
So
when you
much,
whip it or when you do something.
Exactly, you've got to know your ingredients, exactly that, So, without that, without that study, all this, all the techniques that you try can just, you need to know your ingredients, so you've got to study it. It's all very well with students, they not students, lot of chefs, they want to run before they can walk, they want to always talk about, what the things that they see on TV. That's absolutely great. TV's been wonderful as well, with all the cooking programs, Great British Menu, those types of programs that are good to watch, because you can see techniques, right there. We didn't used to have that. I can't remember.
The best thing you could get probably was a black and white picture of something, right?
Wasn't quite. I think we had colour then, but I can't remember really what was, because there wasn't much, on the TV then. But there's some great, some great programs on now. Not that I'd actually watch them, but but now I've got to the point I actually know the people that are involved with them as well, which is great. And then, of course, you've got YouTube. You can find out so much.
Oh, there's so much information.
One thing I would say, I've mentioned Google. Do not, because I hear so many chefs these days, and they don't have recipes of their own. They don't have their own repertoire, and they just talk all the time to Google. I had quite recently, somebody, I was watching something that he was doing, and I said, that's not right to me. What you're doing? He said, oh, no, it's right. He said, I've Googled it. So, I'm sorry, but don't believe everything that you find, and especially when it comes to recipes, and if it's to do with like patisserie in particular, because
you
we
need
know
to be very
that is
precise.
more of a science than than other cooking, and in the hot kitchen, it's you know, if you add a little bit more, a little bit less of something, you can adjust it. And you know, when it comes to, you know, patisserie or bakery, then, you know, it's got to be precise. You know, so
I guess to summarize from what you're saying, you know, it's almost like, well, go to school, but make sure that you get as much information as you can about, you know, how good that school is. Is that going to help you in your career? Or maybe, I mean, I know you didn't mention, but I guess that will be the following step. If let's say, well, you don't have anything in your area, but maybe you have a Michelin star restaurant, or maybe you have something that's a bit higher up that you could go and learn on the job.
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess it's always going to be a trade-off. You know, you're gonna be slower on learning, let's say, you know, the health and safety and all that, because that's probably the forefront of the cooking, of doing it at the college.
Yeah.
But you know, it's probably going to be better instead of going at a bad college.
Yeah, that's it.
I think
I wouldn't necessarily say there's I don't know,
good or bad,
but a bad college. You know, it's the system these days. I mentioned the funding. The students, you know, many years ago it was 40-hour week, as I mentioned. You know, plus your evening, you do an evening as well. You know, or two even. And I think now when I left, and I think it's actually reduced a little bit now. From that, it was about 23 hours contact time.
That doesn't prepare you for.
That was a full time. That's full time. 23 hours. You know, 4 days a week often.
Yeah.
Part of that would be what they call functional skills. So that would be your maths and English if there were students that hadn't, you know, actually completed that in secondary school. So that would take priority over your, you know, your subject, your, you know, which is hospitality and catering. So students could even be taken out of your class, you know, your kitchen, if they need to go and do, you know, an hour's, you know, functional skills, maths or English. So that takes priority. So that reduces it down even further. But then again, you know, if you know, I guess that could also be helpful to some students that really are dedicated, because then they could go to college, they could do those hours, and which affords them enough time to go, you know, to work a part-time job, you know, in, like you say, you know, you know, in wherever area you're in, you know, like if you're in Jersey, then you're inundated with fabulous, you know, restaurants, amazing, you know, products, you know, that we've got, the produce that we have here that's available to us, you know, either locally or sourced, you know, through that great suppliers that we have,
I think.
But the chefs here, you know, there's some real talent here, isn't it? You know, in Jersey.
Absolutely,
you know, it's incredible, really. You know,
I think the challenge with that, you know, when you were saying 20-something hours, is also, again, it comes back to like how driven are you? How much you want to do that extra mile, that extra work? You know, when you're at home, how much hospitality do you eat and breathe? You know, once you're out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I think it comes a lot to that. But then, if let's say you set your expectations, well, I do 20-something hours, and then I'm just going to move straight into a professional kitchen, then you get hit with like 50, 60 hours. You're already...
You're just not prepared for it.
Yeah, you're not ready for it. No. So I think it's a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
So...
you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you have to just live and breathe this for, you know, because that's not healthy either. You know,
I guess,
you know, you otherwise you'll burn yourself out, or you'll just get fed up with it and you'll leave the industry. So, you know, after 2 or 3 years, and all that, you know, all that learning, all that time that, you know, the people around you are giving you, it's just, you know,
it's just gone.
It's wasted, you know. So also be mindful of that, you know. And I think we, as
it's,
you know,
balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think us as the professionals, you know, helping these younger people, we need to be mindful of that as well, and not burn them out. Not, you know, think, oh, okay, well, we've got somebody here that we can bring in for 10 or 12 hours a day and just, you know, just roast him, you know, all day long. No, that's wrong. Also, you know, we need to give them that time to do other things as well, you know, so that they can enjoy
things changed. 70 hours a week are not acceptable anymore.
No.
And it's not like that. It was a standard, I guess, when you probably started, right?
Yeah. Well, it is, you know, sadly it is still, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, in some kitchens.
In many kitchens, you know, and I think
probably not that much in Jersey, but
no.
Not that much. So although it sounds, you know, it's still long hours. It's still a lot longer probably than, you know, your regular 35 that you do in an office and so on. it's a lot more manageable than it used to be, right? I guess.
Yeah.
So we're in a better place, and especially here in Jersey, where you don't have places open till to a ridiculous time.
You don't know. No, that's right. Absolutely.
So that helps, I guess, because otherwise,
I mean, that's right. Yeah, it's it's a better work-life balance for sure. I mean, I spent a bit of time in London. My first hotel after college was the Royal Garden Hotel in Kensington High Street, right on Kensington Gardens. Actually got that job through my college lecturer, one of my lecturers who had previously worked there himself. So he had a word with the people that he knew, the right people, and I managed to get a job in there as a commie. Hated it. I didn't enjoy it at all because, like you say, you're just not used to it. It's so
you get hit with
totally
the reality.
Different. I did, yeah. Well, when I say hated it, I mean there was there was also a bully junior sous chef.
Depends a lot who
the team I always
is.
remember. I won't mention it. I can remember his name. I won't mention that. He might be listening. I very much doubt it. But anyway, so while I was at the Royal Garden, I was still really enthusiastic. It didn't put me off, and it was a great hotel, and a real eye opener to see this mass quality, but on mass, And we had there, which I managed to get spend a bit of time, which was in the Royal Roof restaurant. It was called then. It's still there now. It's still very, very popular hotel. Anyway, so I was there, and I also being away from home, I was a bit homesick. I was just 18.
First time, in that situation.
So and living in the city, I'd come from Hastings, quiet little seaside town,
Big change.
But so it's a little bit scary. But that didn't take long to start, to get used to that. And then of course, there was the, what do young people do at that age? Especially chefs, they go out drinking and. I'm not saying I went in the wrong direction, but you
if you're part of that
can quite easily, yeah. But then again, anyway, so
was it harder to get promoted at that time? Because one of the things that we keep talking about, well, every now and then, with chefs, he's like, well, these guys, they come out of college and they already want to be a sous chef. They do. Is it like a fast tracking? Is the fast tracking of the industry happening now a lot more than it used to be?
Absolutely.
Was it like a lot more incremental gain at the time?
Yeah. You would serve your time certainly as a commie. Although saying that, I kind of blagged it a little bit in 1981. So I get to there. So I spent 2 years, around about 2 years in London. So the Royal Garden Hotel, but I was there on less than a year because I heard that they were possibly recruiting at the Ritz. And I was very, very interested. And I think this stems back from the time that I spent in my uncle's bakery. I was very interested in patisserie. And I think, it's one of those, certainly even to this day, you love it or hate it. There are so many chefs that just hate it. Absolutely fantastic chefs throughout the kitchen.
I don't like the idea of you need to be very precise, because for me, cooking is also you need to have I want to add my touch. Freedom, and it's really, it's really hard with patisserie, right? Because there are certain things that, if you add your touch, is ruined. So you need to follow the recipe entirely.
You do, but then you could be so creative.
I guess, there are things, absolutely.
You really can, and this, and I guess it is just a completely different, completely different avenue to go down. Really, if you want to do that, it's fantastic. And I know some absolutely amazing pastry chefs as well. Oh dear. Anyway, so I was interested. So I mentioned this, and there was no way I could get into the pastry section at the Royal Garden. There was just no vacancies, and that was it. And I was mainly my very first job as I was on the commis entremetier. So I was on the entree section, or the veg section really. I remember being, and I'm sure this was a bit of an initiation test. We used to have a lot of Arabs staying in the hotel, and one of their loves was okra. Anyway, so I was given, it was one of my first jobs on my first day, to top and tail about 12 boxes of okra. I'm absolutely sure that was not actually being used or required at that time, but let's give him a task.
And forget about him.
Yeah, I don't know if you know what I mean by the
Yes.
ladies fingers at okra, and they got a little sort of prickly surface to them, and after 2 or 3 boxes, well, your skin's coming away. Oh dear, I was like, I thought, what am I going to do? I can't say I can't finish this. I've got to just push on and do it, And anyway, that continued, and that was my initiation, I think. And but I was stuck on that section for a period of time, and I did get a couple of moves around the kitchen as a commis, but only temporary moves, to the poissonnier, I think, for a little bit of time. But I thought, well, I really want to get into patisserie. So I was talking to a few colleagues, a few of the chef de parties, and we got on really well actually, and because we lived in as well, the accommodation was just around the corner. Actually, my the accommodation to the Royal Garden Hotel is actually neighbours' millionaires row. So yeah, that's the closest I've got to being that sort of wealthy location. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I could say I lived on Millionaires Row, but almost it was adjacent to it, Anyway, so I was suggested that if you want to get into patisserie, I know that they're looking, recruiting at the Ritz. So I said, yeah, but how do I get in there? What do I do? Do I just walk in and again, there wasn't sort of like you couldn't search it, you couldn't go onto job sites and all that. It was very different. They said no, you go to a pub called the Blue Posts. It's almost next door to just around around the corner. It's almost next door to the entrance to the Ritz. So I said, seriously, just walk in the pub and then what? There'll be people in there. This is what goes on. You'll get chatting and we'll go together. And
you'll meet chefs.
Get chatting, yeah, chefs and other members of staff. And it was almost like recruitment was done in the Blue Posts. Anyway, so I did. I went there. And I got a job. Not just like that, but I made a few inquiries and then
met the right people.
I couldn't, it's not, you can't then say, what is my number? You don't have mobile, it wasn't mobile phones, So I went back 2 or 3 times, and anyway, eventually, cut a long story short, I got a job there at the Ritz, and I started, and I was on the commis patisserie, commis pâtissier, and making, mundane jobs as well. Again, for a period of time, but absolutely loved it, loved my time there. Funny you mentioned about the Blue Post actually, because I was in London, to receive this, for this knighting to the Disciples of Escoffier 2 weeks ago, and my wife and I, so we went and had a little wander around, and we went down to the Ritz, and I said to her, just around the corner, I said, was where there's a pub. There used to be a pub called the Blue Posts. I walked around the corner. There it is. The pub's still there. The Blue Post is still open, and there are still Ritz staff. You could see them in their sort of dressed down uniforms. They've taken their badges off, and but you could see
the tradition is still alive.
Still there. Yeah. And another thing, which is quite funny actually, really was, and it was only in the last 2 days, I believe. This is through Facebook. Somebody saw my post regarding I was quite, I still am, quite proud. So I posted it,
No,
and somebody mentioned something about the Ritz Hotel somewhere along in those comments, and I mentioned the Blue Posts, mentioned about this, and anyway, somebody else, a gentleman, I don't know, but he saw this, and he said, interestingly, he said the Blue Posts are actually, there are several pubs called the Blue Post scattered around London, and the same thing goes on in them. I don't know if they're a group, I still don't know. But anyway, he said the same thing goes on. He said, but often he said it's more to do with the theatre industry. So, there are a lot of, sort of theatrical, contracts also signed off in the Blue Posts, different areas. And I said, well, I'm glad, good job that I went to the right one then. Who knows, I could be in the, West End Theatre now instead of being a chef, might be better off, but I never was a dancer. Anyway, but anyway, yeah, so that was that. And then in 1981, I was flicking through a copy of The Caterer and Hotel Keeper, which, is a magazine that I don't know if you can still get the magazine. I know that The Caterer still exists online. I don't know if you can buy a hard copy now, and newsagents. I don't know. Anyway, that was something that I always bought, regularly. I think it was weekly, and it was because jobs. There was job adverts. All the jobs were anything that was worth applying for would be in the caterer, and I saw this quite a large advert for jobs in Jersey, Pomodoro Hotel. Anyway, so I thought, oh wow, Jersey. I used to holiday with my parents here, and so I thought, oh yeah, Jersey's lovely, I'd quite like to go there. So anyway, I sent an application. There wasn't any commie positions, the chef de partie positions.
But
so
I guess
thought,
because you came from like a really strong hotel, that helped. Right?
Yeah, but I thought, well, I'm just a commie here in the Ritz. I've done 2 years from college, and and I'm still really only at commie level. But let's just try it. Let's give it a shot, and then just hope for the best that I can actually, come up to the job. So I did. So I applied. To the Pomodoro. Got a reply back, and they interviewed me. I believe it was just I can't remember how it was now. It was a phone. I didn't come over here. A telephone, I think, something like that. And anyway, so I got the job, and I came over, and I started in May 1981, and that was at the reopening. I mean, they've closed and refurbished again since, but that was a massive refurbishment that they did then in the Pomodoro, and they reopened the hotel in 1981. And which was actually quite interesting when you contacted me. And because the Pomodoro, I stayed there. I did about 8 years at the Pomodoro. So it was almost 8 years.
So was it there from commie to all the way?
So I started there as a CDP.
So you got the CDP position.
CDP, garde manger. Yeah. So I was in the larder section. There again, so it was a nicely organised kitchen. It was absolutely great. And when I come off I flew over and I got off my flight, and I jumped into a cab at the airport here, and I said to the driver, "Oh, Pomodoro Hotel, please." He said, "Oh no, you won't be going to the Pomodoro." I said, "Yeah, it's a Pomodoro Hotel. I'm sure it is." He said, "No." He said, "It's a building site." He says, "It's not even open." I said, "No, I'm not going there to stay." I said, "I've got a job. I've come there to work." Oh, okay. So he dropped me off there, and it really literally was. I walked into the front, into the reception area, and it was scaffolding, and a long way off completion. I thought, "Wow, the hell's going on?
What am I doing here?"
What am I doing?" Yeah. So anyway, I was led to the kitchen, and I met this fantastic, fabulous gentleman, head chef, Henri Fauconnier, who sadly passed away last year. Him and I we hit it off immediately, and there was only the two of us in the kitchen for about two to 3 weeks, just getting the kitchen ready, unwrapping new equipment. It was so exciting. It was, everything was brand new. The kitchen was brand new, and he tested me a little bit on my cooking skills. So just for one or two things. Just cook this, or do something for the staff, or So I could tell he was watching me, but obviously passed that test with him, and we really got on fabulously. Hotel opened, the team grew as we opened, and I stayed on the larder section for a little while, and then I started to move around. He said, "Gary," he said, "Can you get any help on this section, help on that section?" And he could see that I was, I was able, so I didn't feel I was blagging anymore. I felt that I sort of came up to his expectations.
But it took many years from like when you were a commie to get to a situation where you were trusted. You move up the ranks, I guess, as well.
Probably not long enough though. I mean, 79, I came out of college, and this is only in 81. And anyway, so not long after, I got promotion to junior sous chef, and anyway, so it's absolutely fantastic. And we then opened the carvery, which still operates now. And that was great. So I was the first chef there. I still have the photograph of me with the carving in the old Pomodoro carvery, which was down in which is now the Porter store, I believe it's called. It was the Orchard.
Oh, was it there?
The Orchard Suite. That's where it was daily. It was there every day. Very busy. Very busy. Lunchtime only restaurant. and on a Sunday it was up in what's known as the Harbour Room, which is the main restaurant. Anyway, so that's how it was. Fantastic time at the Pomme d'Or. Great company to work for. There was and still are. I know that. I don't work for them, but I know people who do. In fact, actually, my very recent hotel that I was at recently, my sous chef has gone now to the Pomme d'Or, and I'm absolutely so proud that she's there. I don't know. I've got this thing about the Pomme d'Or that it's my first hotel. Yeah, I'd say it's my first hotel.
Job,
really,
the first real job in a way.
Really,
right?
yeah. So I've always got that connection,
and especially being for that many years, you must form some sort of connection.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's absolutely great place. I'm not here to promote sounds like it, doesn't it?
Well,
I'm here to
and it's absolutely fine. If people do good things, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, let me say that.
I'm always up.
There are other brands out there,
Well, there are, but then I worked, for example, for Dolan's. They were amazing at the time. Yeah, they were really good. I feel like it's a family that's very passionate about. It's got a new generation coming from behind.
Yeah,
and, same thing, and I think it's important because they have it hard these days.
It's hard.
It's a lot harder probably than it used to be. Before, I'm not saying because I didn't live during those times, but as long as you have a good kitchen, good staff, to work with, there was demand for it, and now it seems to be a bit unbalanced, because the demand is probably not quite there.
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be.
No, absolutely. No,
so they are struggling. I mean, I don't know one. I was actually meeting 2 weeks ago or something like that. I met at the Hotel de France, meet the chefs. It was just a gathering of all the big hotels here from the island.
I know it.
Yeah. So I was there, to talk, and because I used to work as well a while back in hospitality, I know quite a few of the people from there. I knew quite a few of the guys. So talking to general managers, to chefs, to everything else, it's not quite there, it's actually most of these places are actually behind, with the budgets, they're not quite there.
No.
It's not good. And across the board, I'm not talking just one, it wasn't even one saying it's good, it's not amazing, but it's good. They were all like, my God, it's a bit scary.
It's a struggle.
Hopefully, it's going to get better throughout the year.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not an easy life they've got.
And they really do need support. And I think the more that we can do, and absolutely, with what you're doing, your involvement now with doing this, I think everything that we can do for the industry is vitally important. And just support everybody really, whether those students that that want to come into the industry, let's try and encourage them. One thing that I really wish, and I think everybody would agree with me on this, I really wish we could abolish the split shift. I understand that that for businesses it's just the way the only way they can operate really, because obviously you need the staff there, you need them lunch, and you need them for the dinner service, and you can't afford to have the luxury of having enough staff to cover straight shifts.
Do you think this will make hospitality? Would this make hospitality more attractive?
Oh, crikey, yeah, absolutely, yeah, it certainly would.
Are there places that do that already, successfully?
There are places now that are doing like a sort of a 4 on 3 off system. So you do a 4 day, 4 long days. It's still long shifts, but 4 long days and then 3 days off. And I think there are other shift patterns as well, but on the whole, really, it's still the split shifts. And, and I think really if we could, I don't know what, I don't know what the answer is, because, I know we can't, like as you, rightly said, that these employers and companies, they simply can't afford those large teams. And it's, that's what the answer is really, to be honest. I wish I did, but, certainly nothing. It's certainly something that I don't want to be doing again. Split shifts. I've now.
What's the secret, Gary? What kept you so long in this industry? Because it must be something that it's obviously I'm not doing split shifts helps.
No, the people. I mean, such amazing people. That you meet and you work with, and I've got such great friends. All my, not all my friends, but on the whole, a majority of my friends, and cool friends that, are in the industry, and I think, you tend to find that they will be most of your friends because those are the people that you're going to socialize with, or, because you're doing the similar type of, work patterns, you don't get the opportunity so much to go out and meet people outside of the industry. I met my wife recently, I'm recently married. And so 5 years ago here in Jersey in a hotel.
Congrats.
So that's,
everything
one of the best things about my career,
job.
Really. So, yeah, amazing. She was then in the industry, is not any longer, but supports me as well, and still she also has a passion for it, and I think she would love to. She's come and worked in kitchens with me, and she's absolutely she's great. She's not a trained chef, but one of these people that just has a natural ability to just to
adapt.
to pick it up. But she's it seems to be whatever she does, she puts her hand to. She just does an amazing job at it. Anyway, so staying in the career, say the people, the ever evolving styles as well. It's so interesting, isn't it? We talk about mention Escoffier a lot, and I always will. And of course that's where it began.
Yeah. He set the foundation, but then
did,
from there
absolutely.
on,
It's just
things keep building up, right?
Yeah. So that's why I just feel, I'm not suggesting that chefs cook in that old style, but I think there's still a market for that. The traditional classics.
And I heard that, because obviously I'm not quite deep into hospitality anymore, but I heard from a few chefs, that quite a few of the classics actually are coming back almost as a trend now. Yeah, which is amazing.
Because they've never actually really, I think they've really not really gone away. It's just all these other things.
That's why they're classics. But
there's all these other little, fad techniques, which are great as well. It's good that, that chefs experiment and they come up with these different ideas. But they come and they go, don't they?
But the classics stay.
Yeah, I think we've seen.
It's like a tie. I always see it like a black tie. You can get pink. This year, 2 years, 3 years. There will be pink ties, and then after that you'll go back to something else. But then the black one will always be there.
Oh, I've always got a pink tie. No, I don't have.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't want people to understand me wrong, but it's just more of a the classic will stay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's nothing wrong, obviously, experimenting. Going different directions. Whatever suits the people, and sometimes you need to adapt if there are trends, and that's what your customers want. Well, you might need to skip that bechamel sauce, you might need to do whatever, but then understanding it, I think, is where the key comes.
That's it.
The key of the
it's all very well, say, hear some of the chefs that are ambitious and they want to replicate what they see on the TV, and of course that's good as well. That's great, But, as I've already previously mentioned, you've got to, first of all, get the ground and get those basics, because they'll always be there and you'll always need them. It doesn't matter what fashion, is on trend at the time. Little coral twills, which came and I think almost gone now, which is a little bit of flour and water and some oil and nothing nice to eat at all. It's just something that's attractive. How many times would you go into a restaurant and you'd hear a customer ask for, can I have a little bit more foam, please? Never. But they might ask, or could I have another little drop of that beautiful, reduction
jus,
of a jus, full of flavour.
But do you think that because of all these, with that many options, the industry is almost like de-skilling? Because that's one of the things that we talked about a while back with some of the chefs, that, the skills that were very important at some point. And I'm not talking, if we go back to butchery, then we're losing people along the way. And I've not done butchery. And I was in hospitality like over 10 years. Well, not over 10 years, because I left like 6-7 years ago. But I'm talking, I started like probably 12 years ago and then I left after. But it wasn't a thing. Like everything would come portioned, prepped now, and all that.
That's it.
Which, depending on the situation, it's probably not that bad, because you don't have the staff, you don't have the situation, you don't have the facilities, you don't have enough sinks or whatever to to have
And we all work to a budget.
But are we de-skilling? It's the hospitality.
It is de-skilling, of course.
It is.
You've got your cost control, of course. If you're ordering 50 ribeye steaks, all cut to the same, so you're not taking that risk and having trim and waste where
cross contamination and all that. You avoid that.
But also these kitchens these days, you'll find that there aren't stocks. I'm not saying that there are no kitchens with doing their own stock these days, but even that's quite expensive. Stock is an expensive commodity now. I calculate.
You need a lot of energy to reduce that.
But just the ingredients alone. For those chefs that still do make them, they'll know this. That I think I calculated the last time that I made. I do try as much as possible. I calculated it quite recently, and it was around about £80. For to end up with a litre.
And in situations now where, these industries going through these absolutely crazy costs, it's really difficult to justify sometimes, that effort that you put into it.
Yeah. Of course, we've got some great products, that we can utilise, It's just knowing how, again, having the basic knowledge to know how to get the best out of these products,
How to take a cheap, because there's always been kitchens, professional kitchens, they're all, well, at least, in my mind, and especially the Michelin ones. And, I'm talking fine dining, they were taking like some very basic ingredient, cheap ingredient, good quality, but cheap ingredient, and making it look like, my God, it's something, exactly. It's the skill of the chef, which we probably kind of lose along the way, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But then, for people that that are approaching your age, I mean, you look amazing.
Thank you very much. This is
but the truth is, you're still not in your 20s, let's say. And for people that are getting towards your age and they think, well, what do I do now? What are the options? How do you take it from, or maybe start thinking about it earlier? What would be your advice, if let's say you get to an age where split shifts are not an option, 70 hours are not an option a week? What is your advice?
That's it. You got me now.
No, because it's a difficult one. It is difficult.
Education is one, of course.
But then,
if you want
is there something that you need to start way early, like almost like plan your. You need to almost work, like end your retirement kind of thing.
I don't think anybody's going to look at at somebody applying as a lecturer at the age of in their 60s. Maybe they would. There are colleges that would probably see that they could benefit from that. Might get a few years from somebody, that type of thing. The care industry.
Well, that's what I wanted to kind of like get, because you still hospitality, you still do your hours, you still do your weekends every here and there, but it's a bit more manageable, and that's how you went
that's what
around
I've done. Yeah, that's it. I think it's a good move for me. I don't have the let me say the job satisfaction as that I always did, with the finer foods, preparations, and that style of cooking, those types of the enjoyment of taking some great ingredients and making something of it, something delightful. Now it's as I say, the job satisfaction, I think, really that element is not there. But of course, then at 5 o'clock when I'm driving home in the evening,
that feels good as well.
Exactly, and I do 9 to 5.
Yeah. And I think you can also now have the time to put more effort into trying to get the younger generation to be on the right track.
Absolutely, yeah. And that now is my, I think that's my plan, is to try and, spend as much time as I possibly can. I hope my wife's not now getting a bit concerned by thinking that I'm now going to be going and, doing, no, I'm not, it's precious the time that, we get some good quality time together now. But, I also want to try and, and help if I can. I want to see what I can do possibly a little bit more networking with some of the, local chefs. I need to get out and get to know a few more of the chefs locally, really. I know by name, and I do know many, of course, but there are some that I've just met briefly, and, but I think, there's a place for somebody who could maybe help with some connections with Highlands College. I don't know yet, really. I'm just hoping that there's something that, in conjunction with the Order of Disciple of Escoffier, that we could maybe work to do something,
make this hospitality a better place.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, just as a voluntary contribution to the industry, to give something back, myself, and do what I can to try and help it, continue as it. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, it's doing absolutely marvellous. I think, Jersey has got, like, as I've already mentioned, the chefs that are here,
they're very talented, some of them.
We don't have to name them all, but, as we know, some great hotels that are here, restaurants, oh dear, it's incredible. You're such sport for choice, and the talent, it's wonderful. Hotels that have been still, continuing for many, many years. So although we say about, you had the meeting that you had recently, meeting the chefs, meeting the managers, and they're saying they're struggling. And I know it's, changed for a lot of the places. But, when you see the likes of the Longville Manor, the Atlantic and the Seymour
places.
Group and the Hotel de France and and all of those bigger, hotels, it's very sad that we've seen a lot of the smaller family-run the family hotels, more tourist hotels, seasonal hotels. It's so sad, really, that we've seen, that deteriorating, and we've lost so many.
Turning into flats and so on.
Yeah, I think the demand probably is just not there now. Obviously, tourism.
And it's the challenge, obviously, they went through after Brexit was even harder for them. Staff situation, it seems like it's getting better because now they found the right channels for it. Again, it's the challenge with the accommodation, cost of living. You can't just bring them here and, pay them nothing.
No.
It's already a competition. Like if, let's say, you are from Europe, then why would you come to Jersey when you can go to France, to Switzerland or whatever, because there are other more competitive almost areas that, you could make money and probably on a slightly cheaper cost of living.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's difficult across the board.
It is, yeah.
But then for someone that wants to get into hospitality now, what's your advice? Like, especially having all this wealth of experience, if someone wants to get now in, what's your advice? We talk about the school, okay, that's still part of it, but what would be your advice if someone approaches you now?
Well, I mean, what I decided, in my early years in the industry, that I would travel. The first step obviously was Jersey, as I mentioned, in 1981, and that was overseas, of course, for me then, but still very, very close to home. But then then I left and I did cruise ship work, and so many places around the world. But I think and it's great. It is your opportunity to travel as well. There's a huge world out there, and
it builds up your knowledge as well. I guess, right?
Yeah. I'm not telling I'm not suggesting that that the students should train here and then leave, because that doesn't benefit the island either.
But if they leave and come back,
they come back. That's it. Of course,
that's still a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they can bring all that knowledge back with them. They would be a great asset to anybody. From working, if they've worked in any of the many of the restaurants and hotels here, and they've taken that away with them, and then they bring back their ideas. I mean, I had a slight break at the Pomodor. When I was there, I said I was there, for a total over a period of about 8 years. But I had a break, from that. I think it was about 83. My brother also was in the industry. He was, my brother's since passed away, but he was 3 years my senior, and he was in the industry. We went, he attended the same college as I did, from school. He did what was then called general catering. So he did front of house. Actually, that was when the front of house training was, as for professional
Properly
waiters, waiting staff, and then he also studied hotel management. But now that's another thing, isn't it? There isn't any real sort of like so much proper formal training, for the service staff. That's another.
That's another area where
that's
we're
another
lacking,
area. Yeah. But anyway, he did, and he was at that time. Where from college I'd gone to London, then I came to Jersey. He went to Switzerland, and worked in some great hotels in Switzerland, and then he joined cruise company, Royal Viking Line, Norwegian cruise ship company, and I was then excited again. I thought, I was excited to come to Jersey, but then I thought, my brother's sending me these postcards from all around the world, and I thought, okay, so
it's tempting, yeah.
Now I want some of that, So he contacted me, and said that they're recruiting, for chefs of all levels. Are you interested? I said, absolutely, yeah. Get me on there. So I did. So I left Jersey, and I went and did I did 2 contracts with them. So they were 6-month contracts. So you do 6 months on, 2 months off. So I did the 2 contracts, and then I came back. Actually, at the end of my second contract, during my 2-month vacation, I was still planning to go back. I absolutely loved it. I was planning to go back. I popped across to Jersey because I felt quite wealthy at that time. I earned good money on the cruise ships. I was still in my 20s, and I was still in my 20s, and I got, I'm doing well. I just take myself a holiday, stayed at the Pomdor. I did. I came back and I stayed there, and I thought, wow, look at me. This is the hotel where I sort of like started. I was CDP. And now I'm a guest, a little young gentleman.
I made it.
Anyway, so called straight away. He was in the kitchen. I had to see Henri, my Pomdor head chef then, and so Gary, he said, that was how he spoke. Yeah, Gary, he said, come back to us, So I said, Henri, I said, no, but I said, I'm having such a wonderful time, on this, And anyway, he said, yeah, but but I'm talking, come back as sous chef, So I thought about it, and I did. So I accepted his offer, contacted the cruise ship company. I hadn't signed a new contract for them, so you had to re-sign contracts to go back, So I hadn't done that, so I wasn't letting anybody down, So I was free to to go wherever I wanted to, but so I did. So I didn't regret that either.
So traveling, helped you a lot.
Yeah.
So traveling is one advice. Is there anything else that you think be like quite valuable for someone that's thinking to get into the industry, like someone on the younger side, because you are unexperienced, you don't really know what you're doing, you probably don't take the right decisions.
I think just just see if you can get yourself into a whether it's whatever it is, whether it's a pub or it's a good restaurant, try to aim for something
higher
as best you can, that will give you an opportunity. And I'm quite sure that if you show some real interest and you've got that passion, that I'm absolutely sure that wherever you go, I can't speak for all the chefs, but I know if somebody came to me with that passion and they really wanted it, I would give them an opportunity, whether I needed them or not. I would try and find an opening for them. And if I didn't have it myself, I'm sure that I would, with the networking, I'd find somewhere for them, because that's what I'd like to do.
It's all about the attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it is. If you've got that attitude, if you've got that drive and that real want for it, then you'll be successful. I always remember one certificate that I received when I left college. And we used to have an awards ceremony at the end of your second year, and the lecturers would nominate certain students for certain awards, and mine was, and don't laugh at the title of it, was from the Muffin Club, actually, but that wasn't the award. It was just sponsored by a club called the Muffin Club. I don't know what they were, and some society. But anyway, it was the Muffin Club Award for the intermediate chef certificate student who, in the opinion of the lecturing staff, is likely to make an outstanding contribution to the culinary arts in the future. So I can, I recited that. So, and I feel that, it's one of my proudest certificates, really, because that was, the lecturers that are kind of, I spent 2 full years with them, and I remember I think one of them is still alive, sadly, we've lost some real, absolutely fantastic chefs. And I thank them for what they did for me. And, and also there's one other chef, when I did that time in that hospital, I told you that I did some, I used to get, when I was in secondary school, I'd jump on the bus and go to the hospital, my friends, some of them, I didn't even tell them what I was doing because I knew they would sort of, give me a little bit of, just to cover that, but, so, where they was, coming out of school and going off and playing football, whatever, I was jumping on the bus and going to the hospital and putting on some chef's whites at the age of 15 and, and helping out voluntary in the kitchen. But there was one particular chef, and he used to run what was called the postgraduate medical centre. So within the hospital, he wasn't cooking for patients or staff. It was like an educational centre for the doctors team, really, So he used to, so it was another level again, it wasn't just hospital food, he was doing some great buffet work mainly as well, and he was, and also an ex merchant seaman. So he was also, hadn't worked cruise ships, but he works on some good other, sort of, ships at sea. But anyway, so there's another, person that I sort of I'd always remember how much he did for me, in those days. But yeah, like you say, so the question being, the advice to anybody that really wants to, to get in seriously as a chef, then do that, explore your local college, of course, because that's got to be one of the first places that you're going to, to look at.
The easiest way to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, but if you can do, you can get into college, into a good college, and I know, as that you're going to work there again with some great, the equipment as well, of course, which a college should have. That's also important, the equipment that you're going to use. But but then just go around, just eat out, if you can, as much as you can, maybe with your parents, cooking at home, reading books, just self-study, but just going, I do it now even, I can't walk past a restaurant without going and reading the menu outside, I love it when the menu board's outside, and I'll just, even if I'm not planning to go in the restaurant, I always have a look through the windows and, and just do things like that, it's, go through the fish market, spend time and just look at, it's all there on display, you can teach us, you can learn so much just by looking. And now, if you're, and if you're polite and you speak to the fishmonger, I know they're busy, but I'm absolutely sure that, just explain, you want to learn a little bit, they'll help you. Do things like that, go to the butcher's shop and have a look, go through the veg, got beautiful fruit and veg market here, there's so many ways of learning, without even realising it. It's not costing you anything. It's walking around and just, and then with that sort of, knowledge, you're building it up. Putting it into practice after, I guess. Yeah. And and I know that there will be so many chefs that would, that would open their doors to you and really do, you'd make them proud.
Give you that option, give you that chance, I guess. Chance.
Yeah.
Gary, for people that want to know more about you and probably get in touch with you, like after all we talked today, and it must be a huge honor for you, being knighted in as a disciple of Escoffier.
It really
and it's great
is,
for Channel for Jersey, I think.
To some people, it probably wouldn't mean anything. But think, it's just another chef society, and it's just But to me, it's more than that. And
I feel like the reason why I'm saying this, because if it was just for you as you're proud, and I think you should be, but it's also important because part of your almost like moral job is now to make sure that you pass on knowledge. You help this industry get better. So I think that's the most important thing, It's not necessarily just about you as a person. It's about what you can do or what you should do from here on to make this industry a better place.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what I think is quite important.
And I just want to do the best that I can.
Well, this
to
is
do
it.
That.
It's all you can do.
But with all of the other chefs, like I say, there are chefs, there are far better chefs out there than I would ever, pretend to be. I consider people say, "Oh, you're a great chef," but I think you can't judge, better or
it's
or
subjective.
worse.
Yeah,
we're all different. We're all different. We're all got our own styles, and
I mean, look, for example, you said about baking and pastries. You have probably a lot better skills than probably a head chef that's even probably Michelin star chef that's not passionate about that area. So we all have strengths and weaknesses, right?
We can all learn off each other.
Oh, absolutely.
I can. That's another thing that I think keeps you wanting to do more, because you're learning all of the time. I'd still learn now. And if I can, whatever, I just see somebody do something that they've picked up somewhere. I thought, I've been doing that for years, but never quite like that, whatever that might be, and so that's that. So please, I'm Gary Benton, and
where are you more active on social?
Easy,
social media?
Facebook,
Facebook,
mate, really, yeah. So not difficult to find, really, I would love just meeting up with people, and like you and I, when we met for the first time.
Yeah, amazing conversation.
And the chances of that, you suggesting the Pomodoro, and straight I thought, wow, yeah, how did you know?
Perfect location for it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think, I would like to keep in touch. I think it's such an amazing thing, that you're trying to do. And I hope it goes into the right direction.
Yeah, I think, If I can just do, a little bit,
incremental
help.
changes, but
that's it. Absolutely.
Do your part, I guess.
Yeah.
Amazing, Gary. Was an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing all these wealth of experience. That you, and I'm sure we can talk for a lot more. You can't summarize years and years of experience, in just like 1.5 hour or so of podcast. We'll get you back at some point. When you have more information, and we'll talk about different challenges and things, that changed in good or in bad, because I think it's important to mention both.
Of course,
absolutely.
Yeah, because it's just awareness, isn't it? You can help others by just, saying, well, that's, you've seen something that is not, that you just avoid that, and then,
absolutely. Pleasure, and we'll talk more next time.
Radu, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.